What's going on, everybody? We're back with another Diablo guide, and today we're talking more Poison Landslide Druid. Hands down, in my opinion, the best build in the game. I promise, if you're a Druid, you're going to want to try this thing out. We sold the Tier 2 capstone at 44, the Tier 3 at 56. This build is so much fun, it's doing a ton of damage, but the one thing I don't see people talk about is stat prioritization and the Paragon board. So today, I'm going to show you what I'm running right now, which is far from the perfect build, but we are absolutely dominating with it currently. And then I'm also going to let you guys know what the God tier role is going to be for each individual slot. Then we'll go over my Paragon board. Obviously, I don't have it all the way filled out yet, but I do have a build planner that will have the entire Paragon board, what I'm planning to do through level 50 all the way to 100, linked in the description. So make sure to be looking for that. All right, first we're going to talk armor, and I'm going to start with my helm. What I have on my helm currently, which is almost a God tier role, is total armor, which you always want, max life to make you a little bit tankier. Life on kill is absolutely vital because that gives you the sustain to stay in big fights. And then I have dexterity on mine. Obviously, I'm only level 70, so at the lower levels, it's nice to have a little bit of extra power. But instead, you really want CDR. The helm is all about sustainability and being able to spam more attacks, get a little tanky, and being able to stay in the fight. For a chest piece, I literally have nothing that you're going to want to run. My chest piece is all about damage. I'm only level 70 right now, and we are absolutely frying every single dungeon that we go into. So we don't need all the damage reductions we're going to be looking for. I have physical damage, damage while in human form, earth skill damage, which all do play into every single ability that we're using, and then all stats. In an ideal world, on a God tier role for the chest, you're going to want damage reduction to close enemies, and then damage reduction to poison enemies, on top of more total armor. The only thing that you could swap out is maybe life on kill for some extra sustainability if you're not able to get the God roll. On our gloves, we're looking a little bit better, but still far from exactly what we want. We have lightning critical strike damage, which is pretty much irrelevant. We have critical strike chance against injured enemies, with it, which is our substitute if we don't get the God tier roll. We have 3 ranks of landslide that you're always going to want, critical strike damage with earth skills that you always want, and then ideally it would be straight crit strike chance and lucky hits. Our gauntlets are definitely more about doing damage because we do want power in this build, along with making ourselves nice and beefy and tanky. So definitely make sure that you are looking for these roles. Now, ideally, our legs are going to look just like our chest piece. This is another beefy item for us. Obviously, the legs that I have aren't quite that. We have dodge chance, which we're not going to want. Max life is nice, but definitely not super important. That will be our secondary option, though, or one of them, if we don't get the perfect roll. 3 potion capacity, which we don't really need. Control impaired duration reduction is nice, but really still not that great. We are going to want the 3 main damage reductions on here. Just straight damage reduction to close enemies, damage reduction to poison, and then total armor. But again, your max life isn't going to be the worst stat to have on there. But this item, again, is all about being beefy, and you are going to want maximum armor and damage reductions on here. We're once again almost at a God tier role. Boots are definitely going to be more about mobility with a little bit of tanky than anything else. We have damage reduction while injured, which you're always going to want. Spirit cost reduction, which you're always going to want. Movement speed for 4 seconds after killing elite is an absolute must. And then the only other thing that we're going to want that we don't have is overall movement speed. The Druid, as we all know, is a super slow character. So we're trying to mitigate that. That way, during a boss fight, you're able to move around and dodge some of his abilities. If you kill some ads during the fight, it's going to make you that much faster. And then also, if you're getting down on low health, you're going to have that damage reduction while injured proc to help you stay alive a little bit longer until you can kill some people and have the sustainability from life on kill in your helm, or some potions go off. Next is our big ticket item. The one doing all the damage, our 2-handed axe. I definitely think the two-handed axe is the best weapon in the game for druids to run with the Poison Landslide build. You're going to have damage to healthy enemies, which procs towards our Barber Heart once you're able to get it. When you're doing those crits to an enemy or a boss, they go inside of the Barber Heart, and it doesn't actually come off the enemy's health bar until it explodes. So you're almost always proccing that damage to healthy enemies. Then what you're really going to want is vulnerable damage, crit strike damage, earth skill, crit strike damage, and then core skill damage. Now, clearly the one that I'm running isn't anywhere near what we're going to want. I have willpower, damage to injured, damage to stunned, and then critical strike damage. But this thing literally jumped me almost 1500 attack power because once again, RNGesus has not been our friend in the leveling process. So I went ahead and threw this one on, but those are the stats that you ideally want to look out for. All right, the amulet is definitely going to be a much more of a utility item. It's going to have a little bit of everything. You're going to want the max 3 Envenom ranks so that you get that extra critical strike damage. And the necklace or the amulet is the only one that you can get that on. You're going to want total armor to make yourself a little bit beefier. Then you're going to want CDR, cooldown reduction. That way you can spam more of your abilities more quickly. Your ult's going to come back up quicker. You're going to get the creeper back quicker. All of those kind of things. You're going to want spirit cost reduction so you can spam more landslides. Now, if you're not able to get all of those, Envenom, in my opinion, you have to have. But if you do need to substitute one of the other 3, then damage reduction isn't the worst thing in the world. You know, if you don't get total armor, at least you do get damage reduction. They kind of play in together. But that is going to be your God tier ideal amulet roll. All right, last but not least, we have the rings, which are going to be another powerhouse item, just like our weapons. You're going to want the stats to pretty much match. You're going to want more vulnerable damage, critical strike damage, core skill damage, and critical strike damage with earth skills. That is going to be your God tier roll. Now that will give you 3 items, all stacking those 4 stats, which will be absolutely huge. Once again, if you don't get all 4, close enemy damage is still going to be good, but ideally you're going to want those 4 stat rolls. All right, now that you know how to have the perfectly built Poison Landslide Druid, from gear to stats to aspects to hearts, we're going to go ahead and cover the Paragon board. Now, I'm not going to go full in depth about every single thing on here. I'm going to show you what boards I'm using, what glyphs I'm using, why I'm using them, and then the side rare nodes that you're going to want to aim for. All right, the first board honestly gives you a huge power spike. You're going to want to make sure to grab the rare node on the right first. That's going to give you 20% extra damage. You're going to work your way up and grab the glyph. Now, for your first glyph, you want to go exploit. Exploit is going to make every single enemy that you do any kind of damage to vulnerable for 3 seconds. Now, this is going to proc off of all of your main stats that you just had for that vulnerable damage, allowing you to just disintegrate mobs and bosses as well if you can melt them in the 3 seconds. Then you're going to want to work up here. You're going to grab another 20% damage. This board alone gives you 40% extra damage, which is huge. You're going to cut back down and you're going to grab some armor and some maximum life. You're going to have 8% max life there with an extra 100 armor, which early on, even at level 50, is really nice. And then I do cut over here and grab some resistance. Going to have 8% resistance to all elements, plus a little bit of power with the 10 willpower. So right here, you're not going to want to be grabbing everything because later on, points do become super important. Now, maybe early on, you want to grab some of these extra like resistance, or maybe down here, some extra maximum life and some extra armor. But late game, because we do only have 225 points total, we got to sacrifice some things for the greater good of extra glyphs and extra rare nodes. For a second board, we're going to grab Heightened Malice. Heightened Malice is really good for the legendary node. While there are 3 or more poisoned enemies nearby, you deal 45% increased damage, and since Poison Creeper is a main part of this build, you're essentially always doing 45% increased damage every time you use that, besides maybe to bosses. This is a huge early game power spike for you, but along the way, you're going to want to grab this one for some extra maximum life and then poison resistance. Over here, you're going to want to grab Overturn. Overturn is going to give us extra damage to poisoned enemies, which again, with our Poison Creeper proccing all the time, is going to be the majority of people. And then some extra damage to elites, just helping us take down some of those tankier adds along the way. You're going to work your way up, and in this glyph spot, we're going to go Spirit. For every 5 dexterity purchased within range, you deal increased critical strike damage, making our crits hit that much harder all the time. And then also the additional bonus is really nice. Critical strikes increase the damage an enemy takes from you by 2% for 20 seconds up to 12%. Just allowing you to do even more damage if you get multiple crits on a tankier ad. From there, we're going to work our way up and over to the left. On the left, we're going to grab this rare node, Nature Born, which is going to give us more willpower and then additional damage reduction from enemies that are poisoned, which is the majority of enemies. And then we're going to work up here to Sinking Fangs, which is going to give us even more damage to poisoned enemies. That way we can fry not only mobs, but bigger bosses. Then you do want to come back down here, and we're going left at first. For the third board, you're going to grab Earthen Devastation. Earthen Devastation is really nice because you get your Earth skills deal 30% increased damage to enemies afflicted by crowd control. So it's going to make your landslides and your tramples just smack that much harder. We're not going to worry about the top right of this build. We actually want to work our way down and then grab Oppress. 15% critical strike damage to crowd-controlled enemies, 15% damage to crowd-controlled enemies. So this one is just going to be a nice another big power spike for every time someone is CC'd. Then we're going to come down here, and we're going to hit this glyph spot, which is going to be Undaunted. Undaunted is for every 5 intelligence purchased within range, you deal increased damage while fortified, and then the additional bonus, you gain up to 10% damage reduction the more fortify you have. So not only are we doing more damage with this, this also makes us a little bit tankier. We pretty much are always fortified with our current build. So not only does it give us a nice little power spike, but it does give us some damage reduction, kind of the best of both worlds. Obviously, you're just going to grab Resolve because you're going by it. Some more resistance. We're not building any resistance on our current loadout, or sorry, our current character. So it is definitely important to be grabbing some of these to help mitigate some of the damage procs that you're going to see in Nightmare Dungeons. Now, the next part is kind of up to you. You can stop after you get the intelligence you need for the glyph. Grab these for the critical strike damage with earth skills. You eventually are going to want to go up here for the additional armor. The potion healing really isn't as important, but the additional armor is really nice. You can do that right now, or if you want to start working towards the 4th board so that you can get your next glyph going, you're going to come over here, you're going to finish out and work your way up so that you can add that 4th board. The 4th board is going to be Constricting Tendrils. Now, we're not actually going to grab the legendary node on this one. It's not that important. This one is more making us beefier and then getting that glyph spot, so that eventually we can work over to our final board in the final glyph. Not all of the legendary nodes for druids are that important, so we're not really focusing those because of all of the additional resources and damage that we do pull out of glyphs. All right, now the 4th board is a little bit of personal preference. You can either work your way up to the glyph spot right away. If you're still working on getting one of the other 3 glyphs fully leveled up and maxed out, you may want to dip over here and grab that extra armor and the extra resistance to all elements. That is kind of up to you which route you want to take. Eventually, we will be going out the left to our final board and our final glyph spot. So that, just see where you're at, see if you need to be a little bit tankier. If you need the glyph spots, that really just is up to you. But you will want to go over here to the right and grab those. But you'll start up the right side of the board, either go right or make your way over. Here we're going to have Devastation, 10% nature magic skill damage, which is basically everything that we use. More damage to elites, so nice little power spike, nice little tanky spot. You're going to go ahead and stop here, and you're going to grab Superiority, 15% damage to crowd-controlled enemies, which again, we have a ton of CC in our build, which plays into everything, and some more life, which makes us even tankier. Then you do want to work your way up here, and here we are going to throw in Earth and Sky. Earth and Sky grants bonus to all magic nodes within range, which is nice, but then the additional bonus, nature magic skills deal 10% increased damage to crown-controlled or vulnerable enemies. Now we know that enemies are always vulnerable because of exploit, so this additional bonus is always going to be proccing. Work your way up and grab even more damage with Nature's Will again. Come over here, you're going to grab Courage, which is going to give us more max life, giving us a little bit more survivability. Then you're going to work your way over here, and for our 5th and final board, we are going to go with Thunderstruck. We don't have a lot of points left at this point, so we're only going to be aiming for the closest glyph and then a little bit of extra damage reduction from vulnerable enemies, which again, our exploit should always proc that. I couldn't really find another board that was close on a glyph spot where we would be able to proc the additional bonus and also get at least some type of extra value out of a rare node. I do like this for the damage reduction, makes it a little bit tankier. And then for the glyph spot, we are going to grab Territorial. For every 5 dexterity purchased within range, you deal increased damage to close targets. Then the additional bonus, you gain 10% damage reduction against close enemies. Again, it is another best of both worlds, makes it a little bit beefier, has us doing a little bit more damage. And overall, I think that these are the best glyphs that you're going to be able to run. It is up to you if you want to plug them in different boards and different spots. Hands down, think that those are the 5 glyphs that you are going to want. And overall, our entire Paragon not only makes us beefier, but we are doing the maximum amount of damage that I could find playing around with different boards, rotating them, looking at the different rare nodes compared to being able to get the glyph spots. It is kind of a little bit of Tetrisy, or I don't know, however you really want to look at it, getting the boards to fit together where you can maximize them with the 225 points that you have. However, I do hope this video helped you guys out. Now you know how to effectively not only build your guy, what stats to prioritize, the skill tree to use, what gems and hearts to throw in your build, but how to effectively and efficiently use your Paragon board. Now, if this video did help you guys out, I'd greatly appreciate it if you drop a like, leave a comment, let me know what you want to see next. But most of all, make sure you sub to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of my Diablo 4 builds.